අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Thursday, the 31st of August, 2023. New entrant, China's Sinopec officially begins retail fuel distribution in Sri Lanka and offers a discounted price as it enters competition in the earlier duopoly market of state-owned Sepetco and Indian oil subsidiary LIOC. Disinflation trend. Slower rise in food prices helps moderate Sri Lanka's August inflation. Smart monies. President Ranil Wickremesinghe stresses the need for innovation in technology and financial literacy and urges a move away from outdated policies.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. හොඳම මෙලට කල් පවතින වහරයක්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very warm welcome. You're joining us tonight on First at 9 as we promise to bring you the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Starting off with your top stories. Sri Lanka's headline inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index dropped further this month, and the Colombo Consumer Price Index based headline inflation for August measured at 4% at a 2.3% reduction compared to the 6.3% rate of inflation recorded in July. The Department of Census and Statistics said that the year-on-year inflation of the food group dropped to negative 4.8%, while the non-food group year-on-year inflation dropped to 8.7%.
According to the Department of Census and Statistics, headline inflation as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index on a year-on-year basis reduced to 4% in August this year from 6.3% in July. Year-on-year inflation of the food group dropped to negative 4.8% from negative 1.4% in July, while the year-on-year inflation in the non-food group came down to 8.7% from 10.5% in June. The contribution of inflation by food commodities on year-on-year basis was 1.70% negative in August. The contribution of non-food items was 5.67%, mainly due to increases in the groups of housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, with a contribution of 3.34%, clothing and footwear of 0.68%, and restaurants and hotels at 0.49%.
China's Sinopec began operations in Sri Lanka's retail fuel distribution market, bringing to an end 2 decades of a duopoly between state-owned Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Indian Oil Corporation's subsidiary LIOC. Sinopec's entrance into the local fuel distribution market follows the government's decision to liberalize the country's retail fuel market in 2022 after the debilitating fuel crisis last year. With its first filling station in Mattegoda, Sinopec will go on to open 149 other refueling stations at stations owned by Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. They will invest in 50 new filling stations across Sri Lanka.
China's fuel retailer Sinopec officially commenced operations in Sri Lanka with the establishment of their fuel station in Mattegoda. With their maiden establishment, the Chinese company became the third fuel retailer to operate in the Sri Lankan retail fuel market. Both petrol and diesel were pumped at a discount of 3 rupees per litre at the newly established filling station. With the crisis last year, the Sri Lankan government decided to open up Sri Lanka's fuel import and retail sales market to companies in order to address the pressure on Sri Lanka's foreign reserves due to heavy fuel import bills. As a result, the Petroleum Products Special Provisions was passed in Parliament in October last year, allowing fuel retailers to enter the local market. The Sri Lankan fuel market was a duopoly, with the operations of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation that owned a lion's share by operating around 1,160 fuel stations, while the remaining market was owned by Lanka IOC with an operation of approximately 218 stations. In March this year, Cabinet approved the proposal of the Minister of Power and Energy to award licenses to China's Sinopec, Australia's United Petroleum and RM Parks of the United States in collaboration with multinational oil and gas company Shell plc to enter the retail fuel market in Sri Lanka. Subsequently, negotiations were completed with Sinopec Fuel Oil Lanka and its parent company for a long-term contract on the import, storage, distribution and sale of petroleum products across the island nation. Later in May this year, a contract agreement was inked between Sri Lanka and Sinopec representatives, marking a crucial step in ensuring a steady and uninterrupted fuel supply in the country. Under this deal, Sinopec was granted a 20-year license to operate 150 filling stations in Sri Lanka and will also be able to invest in 50 new filling stations.
Visiting United States Senator Chris Van Hollen stressed the importance of promoting inclusive governance and protecting human rights in Sri Lanka during a meeting with President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The senator, following the president's meeting yesterday, joined with US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung and visited the representatives of the Hill Country Tamil community and later explored the developments in US aid tourism projects in the Peacock Hill Mountain.
US Senator Chris Van Hollen, who is on a visit to Sri Lanka, met President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday at the President's residences in Kandy. The meeting was also attended by Senior Advisor to the President on National Security and the Chief of Presidential Staff Sagala Ratnayaka and the American Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung. During the discussions with the President, Senator Hollen discussed the challenges and opportunities for partnerships that promote inclusive governance and protect human rights in the country. Following the meeting, Senator Hollen, along with American Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung, joined President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the First Lady for the last Randoli Perahera yesterday. Meanwhile, US Ambassador Julie Chung in an X message said that Senator Hollen also met with representatives of the Hill Country Tamil community to discuss the challenges in that community. During the visit, Senator Hollen and US Ambassador Julie Chung paid a visit to the Tourism Resilience Project taking place in the Peacock Hill Mountain, which is funded by the United States Agency for International Development.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe meanwhile says that he and the government are working to recover the economy with new technology and emphasize the importance of both technology and financial literacy to advance further as a nation. Speaking at the inauguration of the Capital Market Club program in Kandy's Nugavella Central College today, President Wickremesinghe disclosed key plans for this transformative journey. The initiative to establish Capital Market Club has been commenced to address the knowledge gap between theatrical instruction and practical experience and to empower students with an understanding of investment dynamics and the workings of the capital market.
The launching ceremony of the Capital Market Club took place at the Nugala Madhya Mahavidyalaya in Kandy this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Clubs are expected to launch in 100 different schools in a strategic move towards a developed Sri Lanka by 2048 with the aim to foster a learning environment that bridges the gap between theoretical instruction and real-world application of capital markets for children. During the ceremony, the Minister of Education, the Colombo Stock Exchange and the Sri Lanka Securities and Exchange Commission jointly signed a Memorandum of Understanding for the establishment of capital market associations.
වෙනකොට වසංගතයටත් මූණ දෙන්න බැරුව අපේ ආර්ථිකය කඩා වැටුණා. දැන් අපි ඉන්නේ ආපහු බංකොලොත් භාවයෙන් මිදෙන්න. ඒක මං කළා දෙන්න. මේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් කළා දෙන්න. ආපහු මෙතෙන්ට වැටෙන්නේ නැතුව අපි කොහොමද ගමන යන්නේ? 20 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයේ මැද භාගයේ තියෙන ප්‍රතිපත් වලින් යනවද? අලුතෙන් හිතලා යනවද? අන්න ඒ කාරණේ තමයි අපි මෙතෙන්ට ඉඳන්ට ඕනේ. අපි එක තැන කැරකෙන්නේ නැහැ මීට පස්සේ. එහෙනම් අපි අලුත් යුගයකට යන්න ඕනේ. ඉස්සෙල්ලාම තියෙන තාක්ෂණය 21 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයේ තාක්ෂණය කුමක්ද කියලා මම කියන්න වැඩක් නැහැ. ඉතින් මෙහෙම විශාල සංඛ්‍යාවක් තියෙනවා අපිට ප්‍රධාන තාක්ෂණ කීපයක් ගේන්න. ඒක ගමට ගෙනියන්න ඕන. ගමට යන්න සිදු වෙනවා. අපි විශේෂයෙන්ම කෘෂි කර්මය නවීකරණ වැඩසටහන ගේන්නේ අලුත් තාක්ෂණය ගෙදෙට්ටම යවන්න. ලෝකේ තව කාරණයක් අපි මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. තාක්ෂණය විතරක් මදි. මේ හැම එකටම වුණා මුදල්. අපි මුදල් පරිහරණය කරන සමාජය. මේ මුදල් පරිහරණය කරන්නේ අද ඉතා විවෘත වෙළඳපොළක. මුදල් පරිහරණය ආණ්ඩුවකට අද පාලනය කරන්න බෑ. ඇමරිකන් ආණ්ඩුවටවත් බෑ. IMF සංවිධානයවත් බෑ. වෙළඳපොළ හැටියට යන්නේ අන්න එහෙම තියෙන්නේ. දේශීය සීමා ගැන කිසිම සැලකිල්ලක් නැති මූල්‍ය ක්‍රමයක් තියෙන්නේ. හොඳද නරකද කියන එක මම වාද කරන්නේ නැහැ. මගේත් අදහස් තියෙනවා මොකද්ද හොඳ මොකද්ද නරක. ඒත් මම දන්නවා මටවත් ලංකා ආණ්ඩුවටවත් ලංකා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවටත් මේක වෙනස් කරන්න බෑ. අපි මෙතන ඉඳන් වැඩ කරමු.
Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security Nalin Fernando highlights that no one in the country holds the right to act arbitrarily and according to their own will, adding that thousands will do so, who did so rather, have ended up in prison today. He made this statement in reference to the drastic increase of prices of eggs and emphasized that retailers will not be allowed to increase prices arbitrarily, consequently putting consumers under distress.
පහුගිය අවුරුදු දෙකක් තුනක් තුල විශාල වශයෙන් මිල වැඩිවීම විශාල ලාභ තියා ගැනීම තුල පාරිභෝගිකයා විශාල වශයෙන් පීඩාවටපත් වෙනවා. උදාහරණයක් ගත්තොත් බිත්තර, කුකුල් මාස්. මම මේ අමාත්‍යාංශේ බාර ගන්න වෙලාවේ බිත්තරයක් තිබ්බ රුපියල් 45යි 48යි. මේක අරන් මාසයක් දෙකක් යද්දි 50 වෙනවා, 52 වෙනවා, 60 වෙනවා, 62 වෙනවා, 65 වෙනවා, 70 වෙනවා. නගල ඉවර වෙන්න නැති වෙන තත්ත්වෙට නගිනවා. ඒ එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරමු කියන අපිට බෑ අපිට ඕන දේ තමයි අපි කරන්නේ. ඒ අපිට ඕන දේ කරන්න මේ රටේ කාටවත් එහෙම අයිතියක් නැහැ. අපිට ඕන දේවල් කරපු අය අද දහස් ගණනක් හිරේ ඉන්නේ ඒ ඕන එහෙම කරපු අය ඉන්නවා. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. රටක නීතියක් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ විතරේට උත්තර දුන්නම අද ඒ රුපියල් 35ට දෙනවා. ඉස්සෙල්ලා 35ට දෙන්න කටයුතු කරා නම් අද වෙද්දී මේ රටේ විදේශ විනිමය මේ රටෙන් එළියට යන්නෙත් නැහැ. අපේ රටේ කර්මාන්තවල ඒක ඉතුරු වෙනවා.
In other local news, an individual with 3,000 cigarettes of foreign origin in his possession for sale was apprehended by the Sri Lanka Navy in the Panchikawatha area. The 32-year-old suspect was apprehended during a coordinated operation conducted by Sri Lanka Navy. Meanwhile, a suspect in connection with a shooting incident which took place recently in Thalangama was arrested today as he attempted to flee the country. Here's a look at a few other stories in brief along with these two.
A 32-year-old suspect was apprehended in the Panchikawatha area as he was transporting 3,000 cigarettes of foreign origin in a van for sale. During a coordinated operation conducted by the Sri Lanka Navy recently, the raiding party had reportedly searched a suspicious van and recovered 3,000 cigarettes being transferred for sale. The van and the suspect in connection to the incident were handed over to the police for further investigation. A suspect in connection with the shooting incident which was carried out by two gunmen in Koramba in Thalangama was arrested today. A 44-year-old was injured in the shooting which took place on the 25th this month. Following information received by the police about a suspect leaving the country for Singapore, an immediate travel ban was imposed on the said suspect. Thereafter, the 23-year-old suspect was arrested at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka today.
And coming up next, we have visuals of the final and the fourth Randoli Perahera, final day of the Randoli Perahera, coming up after this break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. You're joining us at First at 9 on AdaDerana 24. The Department of Meteorology expects heavy rainfall to the southwestern part of the country up to the weekend. A reduction in rainfall starting Monday is expected. The department stated that with the current rains experienced, there is hardly any possibility for the depleted reservoirs to fill up.
As of last evening, several areas in the country, including Colombo, have experienced heavy rainfalls. What is notable is that areas like Hambantota, that was suffering from a drought too, received heavy rainfall, increasing water levels of the area reservoirs. In Ranna, the Derana correspondent said that the water levels of the Kattakadua reservoir is increasing due to heavy rains. Meanwhile, the Tambalagamu area in Trincomalee received heavy rainfall after 8 months. The forecast of the Met Department is that there is a possibility of prevailing rainfall conditions enhancing in the southwestern part of the island tomorrow and during the weekend. Rainfall is expected in the western, Sabaragamu's southern, central and northwestern provinces. Heavy showers of over 100 millimeters are likely at areas within the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts. While some of the drought-affected areas are receiving rainfall, some places continue to remain affected due to lack of rainfall. So far, 59,073 acres of cultivation lands have been damaged due to the ongoing drought. In Ampara, the water levels of the Kanchikudi Aru reservoir have dried up due to lack of rainfall, affecting families that are heavily dependent on the reservoir. In Polonnaruwa, a program was launched to provide drinking water to area residents and state institutions, including the Polonnaruwa General Hospital. As a result, state sector employees and a group of labourers placed sandbags in the Mannampitia area to prevent water from the Mahaveli River bleeding into the sea.
The final enchanting Randoli procession of the historic Kandy Asala Perahera successfully concluded yesterday with the participation of over 3,000 artists showcasing their art and culture. President Ranil Wickremesinghe graced the concluding Randoli procession and presented tokens of appreciation to artists who brought colour and light to the historic streets of Kandy. Addressing a gathering at the concluding ceremony of the Kandy Perahera, the President went on to say that the Kandy Asala Perahera must be preserved and its progress forward ensured.
The final Randoli procession, also known as the Grand Randoli procession of the Kandy Asala Perahera, commenced at the auspicious time of 7:03 p.m. yesterday.
Carrying the Perahera casket under the
The enchanting procession commenced after the placement of the sacred casket on the tusker by the Derana Nilame Pradeep Nilangadala.
මහා වර්ෂාවක පෙරමන් සලසන
With the participation of nearly 3,000 artists and 80 tuskers as well as elephants, the Kandy Asala Perahera exploded in colour on the streets of Kandy through its final procession last night.
ඒ ගිනි පූජාවකට ගිනිගත්න තෙලේ පොඟවාගෙන මහනර්ග වූ නිමවුමක්.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe graced the concluding Randoli Perahera of the esteemed Asala Perahera festival, joined by First Lady Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe together with diplomats. The sacred casket was carried by Tusker Vasana of Kataragama, while Tusker Singharaja and Kandula escorted the casket.
ඊට අනික් පසින් ගමන් කරනවා පුෂ්ප උපහාර පවත්වන ආකාරය.
Following the successful completion of the annual Kandy Asala Perahera, the auspicious water cutting ceremony was held at the Gatavidiya Kapanathotta during the early hours of today. The sacred casket, which was placed at the Gedige temple, was then respectfully brought in to the temple of Tooth Relic in Kandy. Thereafter, a memorandum which states the successful completion of the Kandy Asala Perahera was handed over to the President. President Ranil Wickremesinghe presented tokens of appreciation to artists who showcased their remarkable talents at the annual Kandy Asala Perahera.
පරිසරවේදී හා සත්වවේදී ජාත්‍යන්තර රාජ්‍ය නොවන සංවිධාන මගින් ලෝකයේ කොතෙකුත් සිදුවන සත්ව හිංසා ක්‍රියාවන් හමුවේ නිහඬතාවය රකින්න නමුත් මහනුවර ඇසළ පෙරහැර මංගල්‍යය ඇතුළු අනිකුත් සංස්කෘතික පෙරහැර මංගල්‍යයන් හිදී හීලාලි ඇතුන් සහභාගී කරවා ගැනීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් හෙන්ඩුව භාවිතය පාදවලට දම්වැල් දැමීම වැනි කරුණු මුල් කොටගෙන විවිධ විරෝධතා පවත්වන බව රටම දන්නා කරුණකි. ඔවුන්ගේ ඒ ක්‍රියාවලියෙන් ඉස්මතු වන්නේ මෙම උතුම් චිරාගත සම්ප්‍රදායික මංගල හස්තිරාජයන් අකණ්ඩව පවත්වාගෙන යාමට බාධා ඇති කිරීම අරමුණින් හා එම විරෝධතා නගන බවය.
ඇසල පෙරහැර අපි ආරක්ෂා කල්ලා ඉදිරියට ගෙනියන්ට ඕන. රටේ තියෙනවා නම් ප්‍රධාන උත්සව දෙකක්. එකක් තමයි ජාතික දිනය, අනික තමයි ඇසල පෙරහැර පවත්වන්නේ. මේ අලියතුන් ගැනත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මමත් පිළිගන්නවා අපි අලියතුන් ආරක්ෂා කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. තුමා කිව්ව නිසා අපි වෙනම සාකච්ඡාවක් අපේ ලේකම්තුමා එක්ක පවත්වන්න. මේ අලින්ගේ සුබ සාධනයත් ඒ වගේම අලියතුන්ගේ ඒ වගේම හීලෑ අලීන් ලබා ගැනීමේ ප්‍රශ්නෙත් අපි සාකච්ඡා කළා. අනෙක් කණ්ඩායම් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කළා. ඒ කියන්නේ ක්‍රියා කරන්න මම පාර්ලිමේන්තුවටත් ඒ පිළිබඳ දැනුම් දෙන්නම්.
Taking you to business news, Sri Lanka's construction industry activity shrank in the month of July to 43.2 index points from 44.4 a month earlier, as most firms remain dormant amid a challenging environment for the industry. A latest central bank report of Sri Lanka said that the survey showed that tendering opportunities are mostly limited to foreign-funded projects, with private clients still awaiting further reductions in costs.
The Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index for the construction industry showed a decrease in July 2023, recording an index value of 43.2. The central bank said that most firms remain hibernated amid the challenging industry environment. However, the gradual decline in material costs had provided a conducive environment for limited ongoing projects. According to the central bank, some temporarily suspended government-funded projects resumed at modest scale during the month, and new orders contracted at a slower rate in July. According to respondents of a survey, tendering opportunities are mostly limited to foreign-funded projects, while private clients are still waiting for further reductions in cost. Central bank data showed that employment decreased further during the month, since firms tend to retain only key staff. Quantity of purchases continue to decline during the month, as most firms are in a wait-and-see stance, only fulfilling short-term requirements, while suppliers' delivery time broadly remains stable during the month, with supplier credit facilities also becoming available. The central bank forecasts the sentiment for the next 3 months to remain broadly positive, mainly due to an unexpected recovery in the economy, decrease in interest rates and material costs, and current negotiations on the recommendation of suspended government-funded projects.
Taking you to the Colombo Stock Exchange, the Bourse closed in negative territory for a fifth consecutive session, pressured by month-end selling predominantly on banks and index heavyweights. During today's session, the benchmark all-share price index witnessed mild volatility, continuing to experience losses. The index shed 51 points to close at 11,114. Notably, shares of Sampath Bank, H&B and JKH gained considerable interest from local high-net-worth investors. Simultaneously, the hotel sector experienced bullish sentiment. Analysts say hotel sector share prices rose in anticipation of the upcoming peak tourism season set to commence in September. Meanwhile, poultry-based shares saw activity with the expected dip in prices of chicken after the lifting of the import ban on maize. The limited participation and continuous selling market turnover continued to remain thin at 1.7 billion rupees, half the monthly average turnover of 3.3 billion rupees. Banking sector and capital goods sector accounted for a joint contribution of 40% of turnover. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers. Now let's take a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And global oil prices rose today, boosted by a large drawdown in US crude inventories and production cuts by OPEC Plus but a slowdown in China's manufacturing activity limited gains. Brent crude futures for October, expiring today, rose 45 cents or 0.5% to $86.31 a barrel. The more active November contract was up 25 cents or 0.3% at $85.49. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures for October rose 29 cents or 0.4% to $81.29. US government data yesterday showed the country's crude inventories fell by a larger than expected 10.6 million barrels last week, depleted by high exports and refinery runs. Meanwhile, analysts expect Saudi Arabia to extend a voluntary oil production cut of 1 million barrels per day into October, adding to cuts put in place by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies led by Russia, a combination known as OPEC+. However, weak Chinese factory data weighed on prices. China's manufacturing activity shrank again in August, fueling concerns about weakness in the world's second largest economy. China's National Bureau of Statistics showed the official Purchasing Managers Index rose to 49.7 from 49.3 in July, but it remained below the 50-point level. Investors are also awaiting inflation numbers as measured by the US personal consumption expenditures, which will be released later today. Meanwhile, the US government revised down its GDP growth to 2.1% in the past quarter from the 2.4% pace recorded last month. Now, the chairman of the Kegor plantation in a hard-hitting statement stresses that reducing waste, alleviating corruption and disposing of loss-making institutes is paramount, adding that retaining a skilled workforce is becoming more of a challenge. He urged that critical training needs to be exercised in adopting best practices for business sustainability. With that, let's take a look at what else transpired in the corporate world today in our segment, Corporate News.
The chairman of Sri Lanka's Kegor plantation said that critical decisions must be made to prioritize the country's long-term development, including reducing waste and corruption and disposing of loss-making enterprises. Plantation chairman Dr. Sena Yadahige said that it would be difficult to retain a skilled and qualified workforce crucially needed to fuel economic growth if this decision is not made on time. He also said that the rise in global temperatures and the spread of Pestaloteuthis are causes for concern to the industry and had adverse impacts on crop generation in the current year and will do so in years to come. Sri Lanka's SoftLogic Finance says that it will adopt more technological advancements going forward in aiming to stay ahead of emerging trends in the coming financial year. The firm said that recognition of the fact that the global economic arena is marked by fluidity, the firm's ability to swiftly adjust its strategies to changing conditions is paramount, and technological resilience also remains central to the firm's strategic approach. In other news, Sri Lanka's People Insurance says that it has appointed Nayangani Dulani Wickramasinghe as a non-executive independent director of the Board of People's Insurance with effect from 29th August of this year. The firm said that the Insurance Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka has been informed by a letter on the day of the appointment.
The fifth iteration of the Derana Skillforce initiative was held recently at the Technical College in Nuwara. The program is conducted by the Derana Media Network in collaboration with the Vocational Training and Skills Development Unit of the Ministry of Education. The program, which was attended by a large number of youth, saw them being educated and informed about educational courses essential for them to secure job opportunities both domestically and overseas. Further, motivation program sessions, tests to identify and embark abilities, and counseling sessions rounded off the program. That's it from us tonight. I'm Indivariya Muatta. Good night.